Phase 2. It's official. We've now entered the second stage of the pandemic. This second stage is called recovery, and with that recovery will come a new normal. There will be new ways for consumers to engage in commerce and a myriad of new ways to pay. Mobile wallets, QR codes, and things we haven't even heard of yet. In many ways, 2020 will be remembered as the year of new ways to pay. In this edition of FinTech Friday, 2020, the year of new ways to pay. I'm Silvio Tavares here in San Francisco on May 28th, and this is FinTech Friday, brought to you by CardLinx. It's great to be with you. This week, in many ways, has been a turning point. Whether it is Milan reopening cafes, Paris lifting some of the shelter-in-place restrictions, or most U.S. states like New York allowing many merchant categories to reopen, it's very clear that we are entering a new normal. The first phase was crisis and chaos, and now we've entered phase 2, and that looks more like a slow recovery. You can see how the globe and commerce patterns have changed in just the past week on our website at www.cardlinx.org. Check out the Commerce Activity Tracker under the COVID-19 Resources tab. As we enter phase 2, most experts believe that things will be very different than before the pandemic began. Merchants will sell in different ways. For example, most restaurants will have e-commerce order capability that's going to allow for delivery or pickup. The way we pay will also be very different. For example, many of us will use mobile wallets instead of cash or credit cards that require us to touch a potentially infected point of sale. In short, 2020 will be the year of new ways to pay. At the forefront of this change are many leading global payments juggernauts. One of these global companies is Mastercard, with over $12 billion in revenues and over 13,000 employees around the world. Mastercard has positioned itself as one of the key companies championing the new ways for consumers to pay. Michael Breen is an executive with Mastercard based in Asia, one of the most innovative payments markets in the world. In our conversation today, we learned how Mastercard has moved beyond card payments and some of the key new ways people are engaging in commerce in phase 2 of this recovery. Well, good morning, Michael. How are you?
Hi, Silvio. Very good. How are you today?
I'm doing great. And you are in Asia where you're based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Is that correct, Michael?
That is correct. I'm in my family home here in KL, under lockdown, safe and sound, I'm glad to say, and I hope everyone else is too as well.
I know Asia has been facing its fair share of challenges. Tell me a little bit about what you do, Michael, for Mastercard in Asia and in Kuala Lumpur.
Yeah, so I currently work for Mastercard Asia Pacific, forwarding our digital agenda and our digital solution capabilities across the region. Really focused on e-commerce and providing the best consumer experience for payment capabilities for our banking customers and our merchants alike.
If I could ask you to sort of put your future telling hat on, maybe fortune teller is a better way to say it. What do you think we should be expecting for the balance of 2020 in payments? What are some of the things that are either in the category of innovation or new trends that we should expect to see here as we look towards the end of the year?
So essentially, we will see better user experience in store, I think, is going to be quite clear, because there's an incentive for both merchant and consumer to speed up the process and to reduce the friction in the payment transaction. I also expect to see changes in how stores could potentially monitor how many people are in there at a given time. I know that here in KL, for example, my local supermarket doesn't let any more than 15 people in there. If that becomes a new normal, how do you manage that going forward, where you're taking the names and addresses of everybody coming into the store, taking a temperature check, and then managing the amount of people in there at a point in time? The automation of that, I think, has a lot of growth. It all comes down to really is this going to be the new normal, or is this something that's going to last for 3 to 6 months? We're starting to see some trends in Japan, in Korea, where the automation of this behavior, of this information is starting to take place. Companies are already exploring this. Well, it's not payments related, but it's certainly commerce related as to how people can interact in store. And I wholly expect those types of services to become the new norm and to grow rapidly, not just in developed markets, but developing as well.
Mastercard is one of the world's leading payment networks, and that word card is right there at the end of your brand name, Mastercard. But Mastercard is also introducing all sorts of new ways to pay. It's mobile wallets, online wallets, as you mentioned, e-commerce, even new types of credit cards like contactless cards, for example. Which one of these new ways to pay is going to be the most popular in 2020?
So Mastercard has helped drive more payments innovation in the last 5 years than in the previous 50. An example of some of these initiatives is our tokenization platform, which encrypts all the card data across all points of the transactions. So we're seeing this scaling rapidly. Last year, we launched Click to Pay in the US, which provides a really enhanced e-commerce checkout experience while securing that card data end to end. And we also launched Digital First. Our Digital First proposition is where digital is the primary use case and physical is an optional choice. And then you touched on contactless. There's been a lot of focus this year, as you can imagine, a lot more focus on in-store contactless payments. But again, the form factor, whether it's plastic or digital, we want to drive the best experience for the user at that point of transaction.
And would you say that last one, contactless, will be maybe the one that's going to bring the most amount of new volume to Mastercard this year?
So contactless has been around for over 10 years. Excluding the US, contactless payments accounts for about 50% of our global card-present purchases. In Europe, it's about 75% of all of our transactions. And in Australia, as an example, it represents about 98% of all fast food restaurant transactions. So yes, it's a very important for us, but it's not something that's new. But we are seeing a lot more demand and a lot more desire for the user experience. We enabled the contactless limit in dozens of countries earlier this year to enable even more transactions to be contactless, speeding up that checkout experience and reducing those physical interactions.
You referenced physical interactions. Do you think that contactless being viewed as a cleaner way to pay will drive accelerated usage of contactless? Are you already seeing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you won't be surprised to hear that there's been a significant shift to e-commerce. Small businesses have been able to rapidly build out and get their online presence running, get the logistics channels up to speed. There's been an overall shift from cash as consumers start to use more electronic payment methods for lower value transactions. Again, reducing that contact and speeding up the process at checkout.
Yeah. You work with a number of your different offices and colleagues in different parts of Asia. I know the headquarters for Mastercard in Asia is Singapore. Are you seeing some differences emerge in how payments are developing in those markets? And I'm most interested in the differences between some of the larger markets like China and Japan and Malaysia and Indonesia.
Yeah, so and those markets, whilst they're very large, they're very different in culture, very different in their economic position, and also in their user demographics. If you think about Japan as a good example, it's one of the largest economies in the world. It has a relatively mature demographic, but is also very cash orientated. The government there's a government objective to make cash to reduce cash to only 60% in the coming years, and it's currently at 20% electronic, which considering Japan's technology prowess and culture and pride in delivering the best experiences, it shows that there's a lot of opportunity there to grow. Versus a market like Indonesia, where you've got around 300 million people with an average age in their mid-20s, who is a rapidly growing, rapidly emerging economy but has been largely unbanked for generations. What we're seeing there is an exponential growth in digital payments and electronic payments. But what we're also seeing is a rapid shift in technology. So I wholly expect markets like Indonesia to skip technology, to move to not to go to plastic, to go straight to electronic and digital, and to grow exponentially quicker as they move from cash to digital than some of the more developed markets we've seen. And then you've got markets like Singapore, again, quite a small country, but highly developed, wealthy country as well, where digital payments have exploded in the last few years. But with that explosion, even in a small market, you're seeing a lot of competition. Singapore prides itself as being the FinTech center for Asia, potentially even the world, and that has attracted huge interest from FinTechs, and Singapore's become a test bed for a lot of these companies to see how they can grow and they can build out their business, and then how they can model and develop that in other markets beyond Asia.
Really fascinating. Now, many of us are seeing how coronavirus is changing many things, but it's also changing the way we engage in commerce and payments. What would you say is the single biggest change that you're seeing from a commerce perspective due to the pandemic?
We're seeing more trust, I think, is probably the best way of thinking about it. But cash has been moving to electronic for quite some time. But there's no doubt about the fact that there's low-end transactions where people would have traditionally gone to their wallet and taken out a piece of paper to make that transaction. They're now considering using contactless instead. And also from a merchant's point of view, again, no physical contact or reduced physical contact, not just from a person-to-person point of view, but touching the cash itself as well. The perception that cash is dirty in that regard is really driving people to want to use contactless, want to use electronic, and really driving that experience in store and online.
Mastercard is really in a unique position because you work with so many banks around the world and so many millions of merchants around the world accept your cards. So you're in a really unique position to understand best practices, what works and what doesn't work. What are some of the things that you've observed and maybe you would advise either a merchant or a bank, things that they should be doing to help their business thrive and prosper in what's a very difficult operating environment right now?
So from a Mastercard perspective, we want to make our transactions secure. We want to make our customers get paid correctly on time and allowing those transactions to happen as quickly and as friction-free as possible. Creating that experience and making it friction-free for the consumer is critical for a business to be able to engage with them and want people to have, particularly in the current environment, to come back again and understand that they have a reliable process of transacting and a reliable process of engaging with the merchant in a safe and secure manner.
What are some of the things that Mastercard's doing right now to help businesses, weather this storm of COVID-19?
I guess from a business point of view, our perspective is we will get through this. We're managing our business so we can be there for our partners today and even stronger for them when we come out on the other side. We've been pretty proactive, helping them with a refund process. We're constantly doubling down on our fraud management. We're sharing data and intelligence to reduce the volume of unnecessary chargebacks. We're helping communities at the local level. We're working with customers to bring smaller shops online, increase digital payments acceptance, and support their business. We've made a $250 million commitment to support small business. Amongst those capabilities, we'll include there. We'll be giving small businesses local market intelligence. It helps them understand consumer trends and how they can target their customers and how they can engage with the right community.
Great insights. Thank you so much, Michael. I wish you and your family the greatest health and also a smooth transition to Tokyo later on in the year.
Thank you very much, Silvio, and I hope we'll finally get to have that conference that we promised each other in Tokyo later this year or next.
Yes, very much looking forward to it, Michael. All the best, and talk to you soon.
Many thanks, Silvio. Take care.
That's Michael Breen with Mastercard in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Coming right up, some closing thoughts on innovation in 2020. Innovation is probably one of the most overused terms in business. We sometimes call things innovative when they're really not. But the current period seems really different somehow. We're seeing unprecedented change in the payments and FinTech industries, and that change seems real and groundbreaking in many ways, as we've just heard. With all of that innovation comes a stark choice. Do we embrace the new ways of doing things, or do we fight them? As I've been speaking with leading executives from around the world, I'm noticing a really significant trend. Despite all of the challenges, many of these leaders are embracing change and doing some of the best work of their entire career. So embrace the change, go for the innovation. This is the chance to do some of the best work in your career. For FinTech Friday from the CardLinx Association, talk to you next week. Take care of yourself and take care of each other. God bless you. This is Silvio Tavares signing off.